Good evening, everybody. My name is Damil Sora. I'll be your host for the evening. We're having our final release of Terminal Conflict Eyes Only DLC and the UI overhaul. I hope all of you are excited. We're gonna go straight into the game. Today evening with me, I have Gellert Kelesi, the founder of Terminal Conflict, going to be playing around or two with me. Gellert, how are you doing on this fine evening?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Very nice to be with you all. What a crowning achievement for the team, and looking forward to showcasing it.
I'm thrilled as well, so let's jump straight to the action. We'll be having probably two or maybe three matches based on how it goes. The base gist is that we're just going to be having some plays. We'll have more explanations about everything that was going on, and if there's any questions coming up, we'll be answering them right on the stream, and everybody can get going from that point. Let's jump straight into multiplayer mode. There's my copy key. So, I'll be starting the USA. Afterwards, we'll have a game with me on the USSR. Can have some fun from there. Been developed for about 3 months. 3 months, you know, maybe Gellert can say a few more things to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For sure, we've been developing it for 3 months, a little bit more than that actually, and as you can probably see, we've been making some pretty awesome changes. You will also see the content has been updated, and of course, we will be standing by these days as well in case there are any bugs or anything of that nature that we didn't manage to discover. That we will fix them as they come along. Just make sure to post them, and we can post a link to the forums, perhaps. Do you have that, Lem? Where
If you could quickly give me that link, I'll be gladly giving it over to the stream.
Oh yes, absolutely. Where we will always find and fix any issues should they arise. But in terms of the overall content, I think not only me but the rest of the team is really thrilled about showcasing what we have been doing.
Yes, of course. I'll be very happy to answer any questions, help people with anything that's coming up. Also see some familiar faces, many people from Tuesday streams are still in here. I'll also be interested because, if I'm not wrong, it's been a while since I played against you, Gellert. I've played against Davide, I've played against Donald and William.
Oh,
So I'll
by
see
far.
how this goes. Ah, there it is. Alright. Like you said, if there's any questions coming up, you can go right here to Steam Community Forum. We'll be answering any questions. We can as well also help you if you guys come over to our Discord. We have all of the developers. Everybody's going to be there. People are going to help you, be able to help you really quickly there if you need anything. Discord, you can find it right here. So if you have any questions, you can also head over to that page. We'll be gladly helping everyone. Eastern Europe.
Disarmament.
The bombers downstairs. If there's a fighter in the territory, is it guaranteed to intercept bombers, or is there a simple chance to intercept it? So the first thing which is also important is, if you are attacking with a bomber into a region, you need to be able to declare a war zone. Otherwise, you can't just move in there. But if there's a fighter or other vehicles, they will intercept it. It is based on what posture those other vehicles are in that you may or may not get it going. Because you can have, if you have, for instance, a fighter in deployment mode, he's not going to be able to do too much. Or if he's recovering or falling back, then also there's not much he can do. It will always be based on how many you have, where you're fighting, etc, etc. Gellert, you're still there?
Yes, sure am.
You're just getting a little bit more quiet, so I was double checking.
I was actually looking for a possible strategy here. So let's explain a little bit about some basic elements. There, as mentioned yesterday, the game is about gaining victory points. Maybe we can show a little bit about what type of victories you can get in the game.
Oh, sure, we can. I mean, there's basically 3 main ways, but there's 100 ways you can solve them and you can reach them, so it's open for a lot of playstyles, and all of them are very viable after all.
So where would one find the victory points?
Well, of course, the victory points are listed in the top right corner. It comes down to what victory condition you're trying to go for. You can select it, and based on which scenario you're playing, you can easily see it right here. Some scenarios have things where it says that you just have to fulfill one small thing, but most of the scenarios will have multiple victory conditions or hidden victory conditions that you can achieve, and again, you can find them in here, and most of them are relatively self-explanatory. For instance, having more than 100 victory points than your enemy is an instant victory. And surviving until the end is a minor victory for both sides, because, you know, you didn't defeat your enemy, but you also survived. And then if you complete the space race, because it makes you able to do everything you want in the world, because the enemy's nuclear missiles are now going to be protected by... It was Star Wars, right? What was the name of the American initiative?
Absolutely.
I tend to forget the name. It's a weird name, but hey.
You can, if you select and go into it, you can showcase it. It's on the last page. You just select the last page.
It's also, what is an important thing to note is that most of the space race does give you a lot of victory points if you are doing it, as well as it also gives you the ability to increase your chances at doing intelligence missions like reconnaissance. So, whilst each level gives you some, I'm pretty certain it's not that important, because if you're going to go for a space race victory, you know, the victory points are your secondary objective, but they're nice to have.
Yeah, and you can, if you go into the menu and you select them, you can preview sort of what they do. Some of them also give you a little boost to reconnaissance and things like that. And of course, the issue with Space Race is to buy the Space Race, to invest in the Space Race, you will have to invest from the military. And why is that? Well, the military doesn't really want to invest in the space race. The military would much rather invest in conventional forces, of course. Well, hey, look at that. I'm getting attacked. Sneaky.
I mean, I'm just gonna point it out. I have a nuke. I know you don't have a nuke, and you just walked into West Berlin. I could win the game almost immediately by blowing you up.
No. It would be a draw if you launch your nukes. I'm pretty certain of this.
We'll see. We'll see.
But, in terms of strategy, what I'm trying to do now is exploit the situation, the fact that I am in a superior military position in...
You sure?
Well...
I mean, you were about to say you have a superior military and I just killed one of your tanks.
Well,
So...
you're about to kill one of my tanks, rather.
I have plenty of resources to spare here. And it looks like you also have... Let's see if this intelligence... That intelligence is correct. You are mismanaging your economy pretty badly already, aren't you?
This is nothing. The Soviet Union does none of this. This is a lie.
You have one finance, you have one military, and you have 0 people. That's a pretty nice bra moment. Just like chat saying. Well, like the West Berlin blockade, you just plug walked in, and America's like, I'm gonna plug walk into East Europe then. Come on. Oh, get out of here.
Oh,
I saw that.
So Operation Romeo, which I just did, now evens out the nuclear element, because obviously that gains me a little bit of nukes. It is part of the new
High risk
it is part of
missions.
the new special missions, and it is a high risk mission for the Soviet Union. And making use of that means that now I've evened out the score a little bit.
So basically what happened is that he managed to infiltrate my technology department, and he now has gained 1 free technology on the nuclear side, allowing him to use those forces, use that technology without having to pay for it.
So what I've been doing here is I've basically gone with the strategy that the Soviets would have in case of a conflict, of a continuation of the Second World War conflict, and gone for the the gap. So let's see if this actually will pay off. I mean, it is a precarious situation to place my units in, but nonetheless, there is also, well, maybe you can share a little bit about the focus selection and why the focuses are important.
So the focus selection is relatively important because not only do you get victory points if you achieve your focuses, you also gain certain interests. For instance, if I was to pick this focus right here, I would be immediately given military, and certain focuses, like this focus up here, immediately gives me some finance, and it gives me finance over time. As you can see down here, I'm currently gaining 1 finance, 1 people, and 1 elites at the end of the timeline, and then I can also pick other things. And like I said, everything gives me certain things. I can also pick enemy focuses if I don't like any of mine, or I could delay, which would basically just give me some interest in general, but it gives the initiative to my enemy. As well as, it's important to see that everything gives me more turns. So if I want to say, for instance, I want to stay in this timeline for as long as I can, I would say, alright, I'm going to pick this one because this is 9 turns in length. Or I could say, no, I want to skip to the next one as fast as I can, so I'll pick a short one, which is easy to achieve and gives me the speed that I need to get to the next timeline.
Yeah, and some of them have policies with that it says victory points on them, and then you can see the policies are something that get activated with that particular
Race.
focus. And what the policies do is that when you achieve those, they will, of course, then you can choose a strategic timing for completing that policy. So there are sort of like goals that you can achieve and get rewarded by. Oh, very interesting. Selecting North America. A new weapon. Oh.
The nuclear weapons.
I hear that Greenland is going communist.
I don't think so. Sadly, I don't have any elites right now, so I have to work a little bit with this.
When it comes to the policies, you can also see your opponent's policies. So, for example, I have a policy called Popular Revolution in South America. And it can be something I can achieve, of course, and it can also be something that Lem can see, and of course know that I might be aiming for that. And policies in general, they will give you 2 main things. They will either give you they will either give you victory points, or they will give you influence. I'm playing a high-risk game here.
Playing cat and mouse. I see that.
Do you want to talk a little bit about we can also see your opponent's sort of domestic politics and what interests are in the game?
Oh, of course we can talk a bit more about that. Interests are, for instance, a really important thing, because, like you see on the side of the USSR right now, he currently has no support for his people, which means he's considered to mismanage his economy. And on top of that, he's currently doing things in a non-focus area, therefore it's not declaring war zones or anything, and it also makes his people relatively angry. Because, you know, the focus right now is on North America, and he's fighting a war, or attempting to fight a war in Western Germany. So the people aren't very thrilled about it. On top of the things, policies are relatively easy to mismanage, especially in the earlier games, because you're gonna need to spend a lot of your policies to get certain things going. Like, I need a lot of finances to deploy things, but it's not easy to get a lot of finances into my hand.
Yeah, so the bars show the level on the interests, and there are 5 main interests. You have finance, the people, elites, military, and government. And beneath them, you see a number, and that number is their alignment. It's sort of how much your standing will improve with them, or vice versa. It can also be negative, of course. And that is something you will be gaining at the end of the timeline. So each timeline, when you begin, you will be rewarded new resources in terms of interests by your interest holders.
Yeah, and like he did some missions which also is currently influencing my interests, which means I'm going to be losing some elites next time, since he decided to do cat and mouse and all these beautiful policies, which make my people not that happy. But I'll be having some cash. Oh, good evening, Magnus. Nice to see you over here. Magnus is a good friend of mine. I'm just really happy to see him. How much more do you want to attack me in West Germany?
The Fulda Gap! It's open for the taking, I hope, at least.
I mean, that's what you think right now, but that's not how it goes.
I have a little bit more elites, so it means I have the ability to send some pretty good infiltration missions and recon missions. And recon missions in particular are really good because then you can see in a specific region what your opponent has. Of course, a recon mission is just a one-off. It's you get a snapshot of what the opponent has in the region. Whilst if you would do an infiltrate mission, that actually leaves an agent there to continue and feed you information. So you will continually see.
Yeah, so whilst recon is cheaper to do and it's less troublesome because it only costs me an elite if I fail, infiltration will always cost me some, and I will lose military if I fail.
Yeah, and infiltration, once units have been infiltrated, you can get rid of them by using counterintelligence. And counterintelligence is also a particular mission that, of course, hunts down infiltrated units or agents in infiltrated units and gets rid of them.
There's a question here. Is the game going to be released from early access now that the DLC is out?
No, the game will be out of early access later this year, and we will be working towards making that happen. I would say that currently when it comes to the schedule, we are on point, and it shouldn't be far away for us to announce a full release of vanilla as we go forward. We are definitely going to be releasing it this year, and as you see, the game has made bounds and leaps towards where we want it to be in terms of quality, in terms of the UI, in terms of the gameplay, and so we look very much forward to rolling this out.
Indeed. Wow, I'm looking at your policies. Your interests are not looking too good, are they?
No, it's not the best. But I have a plan.
The man with the
I have
plan.
a plan.
We'll see about that. Cannot forget that I did decide to arm North America, which means I can declare war zones here. It's not like it matters right now, after all, we both have a lot of nukes, so... There's the one thing I always forget, that I can't actually load my tanks straight into the carriers like that. I need to get...
But you do, I think we should explain a little bit about the units and
yeah, we can...
sort of what they are capable of. And one of the benefits of having carriers is, of course, that carriers are they will protect your the airspace above them. I don't have any carriers in the Soviet Union, but maybe you can show off what skills a carrier actually have, because carriers have abilities, and
yeah, I can quickly show it off. I have multiple carriers around the world because, you know, of course, that's what America had. I have carriers in very many places. I'm just going to show off the carrier right here. This is the 7th carrier I have. If you look at all the things that he can do, first of all, it gives me air superiority, which means if there's anybody attempting to send bombers or anything in this region, have fighters or anything move here, they are going to be blocked. And it also, as you can see here, it prevents, it allows me to do defense against nuclear attacks if there's anybody trying to nuke this area. But of course, this only works if there's not already like 7 nukes coming here. And I can also do carrier strikes, which means I can attack leader, land, or air units, and anything that is not considered a submarine in a targeted region. If I want to do it, I can do it in, as you can see, many, many regions. I can do it from Japan all the way into Mongolia. But of course, in this case, since it is not my focus feeder, it's going to cost me 1 people interest. If I was to do it in North America, on the other hand, no backlash.
Also, to point out, you said the 7th Fleet, and the 7th Fleet I know is in Japan, and the reason I know it is because historically that's where the 7th Fleet was based. And of course, we've gone into the archives to get the OBs, the order of battle, to be set up in a historical way. As mentioned 2 days ago in the stream. Oh my god,
Disastrous
failed.
reconnaissance. That was really bad for you.
Yeah, that was not what the Soviet Union needed.
Nope.
No, but as mentioned, we have a high fidelity to keeping with historical data, and we've tried to incorporate that in the game wherever possible. I would have really liked not to have failed that in Western Europe.
Yeah.
But that's how things go sometimes. I think that means you're going to be safe there now.
I mean, I don't know why you're still attacking. I have more than enough troops there, and there's still 1 unit ready and another about to redeploy again. So even if you continue attack, there will always be a unit available for defense. I have more than enough units stationed there.
Well,
Aye. Like I said, there's still more units. Alright, let's see what else can we do. 4 for you and 1 for me.
Oh, this one's good.
Oh, look at it. What are you bringing out of the coffin? Italian Communist Party.
Welcome!
Mamma mia.
Arms race.
I'm not gonna get myself distracted by that.
So what happens here is I invaded with a surface fleet out of Svalbard and invaded northern United Kingdom. And of course, it doesn't mean I've actually changed influence. So we can maybe talk a little bit about influence on the map and what influence actually means here. So
I mean,
influence is...
it's... No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. So influence here is the amount of actual influence you have in a specific region. But just because you move a unit there doesn't mean that you gain more influence. In order to gain influence, you will need to take certain actions. And of course, a perfect example of this is just moving troops doesn't mean you're going to be invading a country doesn't mean you're going to be convincing their people that you are going to be good at leading that country. And so the game... Oh, attacking in Yugoslavia. Interesting.
I mean, I know that you're already redeploying there, so might as well continue.
Oh, wow. So that what you guys saw there was a carrier strike, and that carrier strike destroyed one of my units.
So, I expected him to move out of Yugoslavian territories, but I know that there's 2 units reorganizing. So if I carrier strike with my planes, instead of my tanks would have engaged another unit which is capable of fighting, whilst the carrier instead is going to attack anyone there. So there's a chance for me to attack the reorganizing units and destroy him. So due to the fact that I engaged the reorganizing unit with the carrier, I destroyed it, and since I destroyed a unit within a war zone, it generated war score for me. Victory points in this case. To the point where I'll get bonuses.
Yeah, we should also explain that if you attack units in a controlled area, the one with the that is blue on the map for you, and that is orange for me, of course, it means that their war zones will be established. But if you don't have control there and you attack a certain region, then instead what ends up happening is you don't destroy the unit, you just end up having a skirmish, and then it also means your unit can withdraw. So in this case, for example, you could have withdrawn your submarine there.
Yeah, but I decided not to. I don't need it. So I have plenty more units to work with. But I have a good plan which I can do right now. I'll take a gamble.
Arms race.
The focus I had available wasn't the greatest. I'll take this gamble. I have a plan. Ah, the confusion. He doesn't know.
Puts me in an interesting position. I'm actually gonna disarm.
Okay, so for people to understand why I did this was the fact that he was basically really out of position with his troops. The troop which was stationed in Iceland was about to be destroyed, and the troops he had in Yugoslavia and Italy were also almost destroyed, to the point where I could have easily taken them down.
Never. We're just made. The Soviet Union is a peaceful nation.
Yeah, you only invaded like 4 countries by now. But the important thing to know is that due to the fact that he was forced to disarm, if he wants to redeploy all of those units, which at this point were at least 4 units, that's going to cost him a lot of finance, which he doesn't have. And if there's going to be any focuses in the meantime, which are happening in Western Europe, there's nothing he can do. He would have to move troops either from the Soviet Union all the way over here, which is difficult for him because he disarmed. So I can declare war zones, but he cannot declare war zones. Whilst he also did cool down the Doomsday Clock to the point where I can't now send nukes if I wanted to, I'm still in a good position, because I can just continue to force these regions. Buffer retaining. Yes, this is what he's doing right now. He is putting troops in the Ukraine, trying to have a fight with me. There we go. So here's the first jump in timeline, because of course this is a Cold War game. We're not going to be just playing in 1946 to 1950. Now we've reached the second timeline, which is allowing us to pick from new focuses, do new special missions, and as well in this case, I'm allowed to pick the first thing we are going to do.
Yeah, because the way it goes is the Soviet Union always starts first, except for if the Soviet Union has more victory points, which I actually do have. I have 1 more victory points. So then, who goes first? Well, the one with the least amount of victory points. In this case, you get to
You have a
pick
phone
first.
in the background. Sorry, there was this interference, I just wanted to point it out.
Oh, was there interference?
Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's gone away.
Disarmament.
Oh, interesting. So we go into Africa.
Yes. Mutual disarmament.
Sub-Saharan Africa is a very interesting element in general.
The great thing about this is, if I can... How many times again are you going to try this?
The enemy have launched their first object into space.
It's not going to change. Let's see, how much do I need? Spend 3 military.
So Knati is an interesting individual, and of course the leader of the Mau Mau rebellion. And the Mau Mau is in general, just see here, is in general something I would be very inclined to support the Mau Mau rebellion.
I mean, sure. Also, yes, to SJ Gold. it is only the release of the DLC. The game will still be continued to work on, like Gallet said earlier, but the work on the DLC is also not completely done. There will also obviously still be bug fixes, which we're going to be pushing out in the following days, because there's only a limited amount of people who are working on fixing all the bugs, and since there's so much content and there's only so few people who have tested everything, we managed to test everything very much in depth, but as everybody knows, there's no game which is going to come out with no issues at all. So there will probably 1 or 2 minor bug fixes coming up.
Yeah, and the community has been really helpful in providing that, and of course all the developers, and I really want to commend the art coding department and the QA department for putting in the hours and the hard work in making that happen. And of course, as ever, we're vigilant and fixing any bugs that you might encounter. So in terms, I was talking before about the policies, and here is one policy I will be enacting. It's the common form. And the common form, of course, means that I get to advance a little bit more. And another thing which I've geared up for is socialist fraternity. And both of these, of course, change the map a little bit in Western Europe. In particular, common form changes a little bit because I gain 1 influence in 4 different regions with that. That means that I can solidify a little bit more my position in Western Europe. It's not that precarious. Whilst at the same time, I can take the time to start off the Mau Mau rebellion in sub-Saharan Africa. And the Mau Mau rebellion, in this case, it increases the power of Kimate and declares a war zone in an American-influenced region.
Of course it didn't work.
Are you trying to...
No.
Are you trying to kill Kimate?
No. Not doing anything. I definitely did not attempt 2 assassinations on him, which both failed.
But you certainly did. You certainly did.
So for people to understand this, my attempt there was I had a 40% chance to assassinate him, which means he would just be completely removed from the game, which finishes the entire rebellion and just ends his regime completely. So I attempted it twice to get it rolling. Sadly, both times I failed. But it's not as bad as one of the test runs we had on Tuesday, where I managed to fail. What was it? A 60% mission 8 times in a row? If I'm not wrong? That was astonishing.
But we gotta tell people also that there are focuses that increase your chance of success. So if you set it up right, and then you need not to fear. You can succeed and increase your potential of gaining the traction with the intelligence missions.
Yes, just like we had in the last timeline, I decided to pick a mission which gave him a 50% bonus on Operation Boomerang, which is a high-risk mission, as well as on... It was Assassination, right? What's the other one?
Yes.
Or was it Counter-SP? So he would, during this focus, he would get 15% higher chance on Assassination, as well as on Operation Boomerang. So it's really important that he queues it up properly. So it might be difficult for him to do too much, since I managed to get that focus going to maybe not a good timing for him.
So Abdel Nasser, he is a fantastically good leader because he can be used by the Soviet Union here in order to choke off one of the main points on, namely the Suez Canal. He historically, of course, he also nationalized it, so it means that there's a good potential for me here to do something useful with him making that happen.
Also, hello, Mr. Maximiliano. How are you doing on this fine evening?
I do wonder what you have in store for me here.
I'm not doing anything, don't worry about it.
Don't I know it? Don't I know it? Just chilling.
Our fighters and carrier fleets can now deliver nuclear strikes.
We also want to mention here, I think if you would like to showcase the, just in general, nuclear research and what that is all about, since we
I was just working on that.
Oh.
So, the nuclear research is that you can, based on the timeline, you can get more bonuses. Most of the bonuses give you more production based on your turn. So right now I have a production which gives me 0.2 nukes per game turn that goes on. So you also have to understand one thing, which means the estimate here, the estimated value, is very much wrong in almost all cases. Because there's no way in the world that the Soviet Union has significantly more nukes than me. When I started with one more, he could at most have equal amounts of nukes. But not substantial amounts more. Let's see. I'll pull him here. No, Skyr, it's not about how much he's lying, it's about my intelligence, because if you look at any values, it will often tell you how accurate those values are. I can tell you for one thing that the finance, the people and the military on his side are very accurate, due to the fact that last turn he didn't have anything when the accuracy was 100%. Which means in this timeline he had most got 1 or 2 on top of them, and he used them for deploying some stuff, as well as he used some of his government to deploy both of these leaders, well, because he deployed Himati and Nazaire. And now he also did the space race, which again cost him a good amount of his military.
You can update those values as well. If you do an espionage mission...
yeah, I know. I'm not bothering right now because I don't have any elites, so...
Oh, thank you for that information. That was really good to know.
I mean, I said that like 3 turns ago, but sure.
I think this brings us to the other element, which is, of course, the mind game. And it is a mind game that always takes place here. And we really wanted to make that shine in the game. And one of the most frequent questions I get asked is, how come there's no in-game chat? And that is on purpose that we have chosen not to have one, because we want to limit the game to what would have been available for a leader during the Cold War. And of course, the limited amount of contact in between the two factions and the two superpowers, it is what leads to the this conflict-filled environment. So you have to second guess the choices that you make, and second guess and the choices that your opponent makes. And why would my opponent be doing this, or why would my opponent be doing that? And that is what brings an interesting dynamic in terms of the gameplay to the Cold War, and also it exemplifies very well the danger of these types of weapons. I think I'm gonna just do a little bit more of this. You have strong forces almost everywhere, which
I've been deploying myself. I've been trying to contain you as much as I can, which means right now you have no grasp over South America, you have a hard time in Africa, and you're not going to be able to move too much in Europe. And as people in chat might have noticed, there's one of my interests which is relatively high, because I can use this to do whatever I want, whenever I want. I'll quickly just explain it to people, but I don't want Galler to hear everything, so for a second I'll... So for people to understand is that I'm getting people interest. Due to people's interest, I can do things in non-focus feeders, so I could currently invade the USSR. Because it costs me people, but I have a lot of people available right now, so this is completely acceptable. And on top of that, I'm also mostly ignoring the space race. Because he's wasting a lot of his time on the space race, and I'm just gonna get myself going on the nuclear research. Because I know he's pretty trigger happy, so he's gonna get the doomsday up relatively quickly. And if I can prevent him from getting a foothold in North, South, or Central America, then I will be able to prevent him from ever launching any nukes towards me on close ranges. And afterwards I'm gonna also try to get his control of Southern Europe dismantled. And since he also has no control over Eastern Europe in most regions, it's gonna be relatively easy for me to block his nukes off. Alright, I'm back. Hope you didn't open the stream and have been listening into what I've been saying.
No, I have a good plan, and I will not deviate from that. I think it's you'll see. I think it's going to be wonderful.
You know what I just realized? We've been already playing for 50 minutes, and we wanted to have 2 games.
Oh my god!
I would say we can keep it today for 1 game. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have more time to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I think I'm going to be I think I'm going to be winning this. I got a good feeling about it.
We'll see.
I've been really working hard on my setup for it, so...
I haven't been, like I said, I haven't been playing with you too much as of late, and I have not played myself too much with this game. I've more or less just been, you know, doing the bug fixing and such.
I'm not a sneaky player.
Nah. I mean, you may or may not be completely mismanaging your country, but I don't mind.
Never. The Politburo knows exactly what the Politburo is doing. I think that...
The long minute? Oh no, like I said, he can already hear me again.
I think that you will. I think that you will be surprised over what I have in store, and basically, it is this.
Arms race.
Oh, Mr. Tito in Yugoslavia, where you have all of your forces.
I've been thinking about should or should not be fortifying it. The partisans got me there.
So let's explain what just happened. So Mr. Tito, well, he's a leader, and I had a focus which enables him in the game. And when he is recruited, he can contest enemy units in the region where he's recruited. And obviously, being from Yugoslavia, he arrives with his forces, destroying all the enemy forces except for one. And thus, then my Soviet forces can step on behind it and invade. And all of a sudden, I think now that we have turned the table on US forces in Europe.
Hmm.
This is what we were talking about, that you can you will need to take risks. I mean, when you engage in the Cold War and this type of conflict, you will always have to manage your risks. And of course, now Europe is in a very precarious situation. But I do want to be careful not to overstretch, because
Aye. I'm still there.
And here I destroyed those forces.
Oh, you killed everything.
Yes, because
Alright,
all
that
your
was-
units were reorganizing. So now I can invade with my army command.
Well, usually you're not always killing everything, but this case it was bad for me. I was deploying my units there relatively quickly, but that's bad.
And I have managed to put some planes up now, so it should mean that we can take care of that pesky carrier that has been really bugging us in Italy. Now, I see that you deployed a unit in the French-Belgian zone, and that's because army commands, they have an ability that they can see units in adjacent regions. I don't know what unit that is, but I know that there is a unit there. Now, of course, that means that I could go there, but I think if I did, it would probably be
A bad move.
bad move. And when units are deployed, they take one turn to really get deployed. So this would be the time to attack it, because attacking it now would mean I destroy it or I disrupt it. But I can't. I mean, going there, I think, would be very dangerous, and it would lead me to overextending just the same way that units were overextended there before. And so, for that reason, I will just have to stand down and not make that move. But I am tempted, for sure. In return, though, I think I will secure myself a stronghold in Northern Europe instead. Now, attacking that carrier means that that carrier can now be withdrawn, and carriers set to withdraw, of course, can, but it means you have to actively select it and move it before the turn ends. Oh, the Hollywood investigations.
Yes.
This is really a cornerstone in
Arms race.
intelligence history for the United States. It was part of the CIA. Maybe you want to, as you go, describe a little bit about what's happening here.
So, first of all, let's explain why I decided to pick that focus. The focus sets my elites to 5, and my elites were at 1 at that point, which basically means I just reset the entirety of my elites, and I gained more elites through the focus. Basically, what's happening in America was that during the Cold War, there was a lot of talk about anything that isn't market capitalist was very communist, because, you know, like food aid, it's communist, and people wanting more rights, that's communist. Food, that's communist, and they really went all out with that. So they even called in Hollywood and everybody to make movies to show that, you know, no, this is indeed not capitalist. We have to contain the communists, and everybody has to work with it. So they've brought more and more people into it, to the point where it got slightly excessive. In this case, many anti-communist movies, etc., etc. So now we're having also an investigation to see who here might be communist, what's going on in Hollywood, etc. And I've been having some events.
Yeah, and we want to say that this is also part of the eyes only element in this. I just got a permanent council decision, and that basically is for my foreign affairs. And what it does is that the Security Council has been called because apparently they think that the Soviet Union is mishandling things. Pah! Liars. Someone call the police. This is always... These are lies. Filthy lies. We're doing great. And unfortunately it means we will lose an influence in Ireland. And Ireland drifted towards you.
Ah, capitalism.
Extortion. That's extortion.
Nah, that's money.
Of course, you might have the upper hand when it comes to finances, but I think I've tried really to solidify my position in extending my border into Western Europe. Yes, creating in its wake a neutral East German Baltic zone. In the game, obviously, 0 influence means neutrality.
Neither sides have anything to say there.
And West Berlin is weakly in your pocket, but under occupation.
Which means at this point, it's probably relatively simple to say that this is indeed not a Cold War.
Well, it's still it's a Cold War with hot war elements in Europe.
Yeah, it's been pretty, you know, it's been pretty active Cold War, to say.
And I think the main element in this is, of course, the proxy wars, and that's what we try to capture, the proxy wars, and sort of the during the Cold War, this idea of a proxy conflict where you export your conflicts to other nations. And as you see, I'm trying to protect the Soviet Union, and he's trying to protect the United States. And of course, we all have extended somewhat our spheres of influence, but we're by no means in a position where any one of us is dominating, as of yet, the situation. And the United States in general is more spread out over the map. So when you think about strategies, you really want to contain the Soviet Union. and the Soviet Union is more focused and more concentrated in one place. And what the Soviet Union needs to do is use that strength to try and push and break out of that containment.
Let's see what you have in check for the next turn.
I am. I'm very much. I would like to do something in North America, but you're just so strong there. I don't.
I've solidified my position for a good reason.
Oh, you certainly have. You certainly have. Oh.
So for everybody to understand is, since the active feeder is North America, he should attempt to do everything he can in North America, because everything else costs too many people. But it's difficult for him, so he's instead doing things in Egypt.
Yes, and as seen, I recruited Nasser previously, and now I can make use of Nasser in order to support me when he has selected a focus where I do not have strength. So it's about evaluating your own strengths and weaknesses, and the strengths and the weaknesses of the opponent. And what's important about it is, of course, taking those actions and making that happen. You are at the same time at the mercy of, oh my god, you French-Belgian zone. Yeah, something is definitely building up in Europe again. So what I was saying, so what you want to do is you want to look at the map and you want to see where can I end up with my logistics, and basically by keeping the southern Europe here open, it means that I can act in the Middle East, because southern Europe acts as a shield then for me in against the United States. I would have really liked to push into Spain, and particularly because with Spain you can close down the Gibraltar, take Gibraltar, and with that strait you can close down the Mediterranean for U.S. traffic. So what's happening on your side?
Not much. I'm currently doing something which people. I'm not sure. Is this already in the stable? Deciding on policies on events later. Again, I haven't really played the stable build too much. But I've been having some pop-ups, for instance, events like the Brinkmanship, where I'm currently not attempting to decide on anything. I'll keep it for later. So I'm not forced to take action right now. But my plan is this. And now we've come to a point where there's nothing I can pick in the list anymore, which means it's... Even if it was my turn, I wouldn't even know what is going on here, so it's gonna be now at his mercy to choose what we're going to do. There's the Red Dragon Rising. That is an interesting decision.
Arms race.
Yes, this is the Chinese Civil War. Ni hao to all you Chinese out there watching the stream. Just drop a message. You're most welcome. It is time to rumble. The Chinese, in this case, I am playing on the side of Mao, of course, and what we're trying to do here is secure China for us. And as you see, we begin with war in almost all of China. It means that, in essence, because there's war in almost all of China, it's a dangerous position for carriers to lurk around.
You have nothing else there. Sad. I don't have much to throw against those carriers, against those subs. The problem is, I don't fully remember every single unit how they're deployed, so right now he's able to move a lot of his units exactly where they are, because I never move these units too much. So...
So what I did was I stationed since I knew I was going to get this particular focus, I saw it previously, then what I did was I deployed a unit, submarine, in Vladivostok, and then I could utilize that to do a sneak attack on the carrier. And the carrier is the most valuable unit in the game, and the loss of a carrier, of course, is great for me because it takes out some of the air power, whilst at the same time it gives me victory points, because destroying a unit grants you their cost in victory points.
But only if you destroy a unit in a war zone. That's important.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Which, since I had 3 points of control in that region, if it was a 2-control region, he wouldn't have gotten a war zone, which meant the destruction of that unit would have been worthless for him in terms of victory points.
One of the benefits also of the Red Dragon Rising in Mao is that at the start of each Soviet turn, peace is declared in all the regions I take control over. So, simulating the effects of the Chinese Civil War historically. That also means that as I go, I can reap the rewards of what I'm capturing. Of course, the United States will be on the defensive here. But by no means should they be counted out. Oh no.
Well, with this I now secured my remaining carrier here.
That was geniusly played. So you want to explain what you did?
Yeah, so what happened here is, since he was still sitting in a controlled zone, a zone controlled by me, I could still see that his unit was there. So I moved my units from America over into these regions, and now that he wasn't expecting me to attack, because I've been seeing him focus a lot on mainland China, I was able to force him into not being able to defend himself here. So now he's counterattacking me again, but since both our units are now going to be considered to be engaged, it's going to take him a while to send more troops to attack us with. So
and
there shouldn't be much of an issue.
And that's why I wanted back up. Ooh yeah! Another carrier gone.
Sneaky bugger. Oh, you killed both of them. Screw you.
Of course, because by attacking your unit became reorganized and could not protect the carrier. Oh, this is getting personal.
If I had my finances ready right now, I would throw more shit at you. But I know I have another 8. I have another 8 turns for anything to happen in this region in terms of the naval side, so it's not gonna be too much of an issue.
I have been preparing here. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you have basically your entire navy over here.
Yep.
But time for the next time zone. And again, people always overestimate. Whilst I do have minus 40 victory points right now, the game is still far from lost. The game can really quickly turn.
Yeah, as we saw with Western Europe, I mean it.
Well, this is going to work relatively well for me.
Arms race.
Mining concessions. Gain 2 finance at the end of this focus. If using controls more influence than USSR, gain 2 influence. Oh.
I have a lot of influence within Africa.
Yeah.
So let's... brinkmanship still. Let's see. I'll continue to postpone brinkmanship a little bit. Perfect.
Oh, Mr. Chombe.
Yes.
The enemy have launched their first animal into orbit.
As many people can see here, Mr. Russia is going relatively heavily on terms of the space race. He's trying 2 victory conditions at once right now.
Yes, with regards to the space race, I've pretty much followed the historical route. First with Sputnik, and now with Laika. And what remains is getting Gagarin up into space.
And afterwards, I'll just pass him by and go and build Star Wars.
I would have very much liked to make use of the last element of Nasser.
I mean, I have another option for you. How about we do this?
Oh no! Masterfully played. Masterfully played.
Remember how I set it to 0 and I realized that you never changed it?
Yes.
Basically, for you people to understand, is he's trying to consolidate his control over southern Europe. But I can now cut him off by basically gaining control in Russia itself. Because right now I'm gaining control right next to his capital, which is something he has to avoid at all cost. So his only choice to do here is to either assassinate him or try to depose him, which is going to cost him a relatively large amount of elites or people.
Yeah. Well, it looks like I got a foothold in Western Europe, but you got a foothold in Eastern Europe, and
that is more important because you still cannot reach my mainland.
And the Cold War here will remain cold. There's little to nothing I can do about that. That was masterfully played. I'll hand it to you. That was genius. Yeah. There is literally nothing I can do about him. Or that I would like to do about him at this point. Well played. Well played. I mean, I could attack him, but that's...
That would still not remove him, and he would still sit on... You would lose people for that. No, we have we have plenty of time to spare. So I'm actually gonna have to think about my next move, because I have very much maneuverability right now. There's not really anything that's going to be in my way. I also definitely need to do an espionage on use at some point, because the 20% accuracy, you know, it's not that great. I would really appreciate some better intelligence than that.
Yeah, and also many of the missions they provide alignment.
Ah. Such a high chance, and I failed again. I attempted a mission for 75% and I failed it. This would have easily won me the game right there.
Oh. Where did you do that? Was that in...
I was doing it in Russia itself.
Oh. So I'm guessing the Aleutian Islands?
Yes, of course.
So
for people to understand this was a high-risk mission, which means I have a single shot at it, and I failed it. What happens if I am successful? There's a 25% chance for every unit within the Eastern European zone, like the Russian areas here, any unit that exists here, a fighter, a tank, a ship, anybody, to be added the status of infiltrated, which means it basically gives me full oversight over anything that's going on within the Soviet Union. And I would see every troop movement of anybody who moves in and out of the area. It basically gives me total reconnaissance over the Soviet Union for the rest of the game, and would have allowed me to move my troops more freely here without having any reason to be scared. Sadly, I failed it, so that wasn't great for me.
It was a great attempt, though.
Yeah.
You want to go over some of the other missions and what's available in Eyes Only?
Oh yeah, that's actually something I was planning on. So right now he is ahead of me in the space race. So I was planning on doing Operation Luna, which was an American project where they caught Russians... What was it? A Russian like satellite, like a minor satellite with the...
Yep.
Which the Russians dropped, and they attempted to pick it up, disassemble it to learn how it works, then they put it back together and put it back where they found it. So that when the Russians came to pick it up later, they wouldn't notice the Americans were there. And the point is, if I'm successful in doing it, I would gain the next space race technology for free. I don't need it because it doesn't give me victory points, but it does give me the 10% extra recon. So I think I need to do some of these, because even though I have 75% chance on those missions, I keep failing.
Well, I only failed one mission so far out of maybe 5.
Yeah, I've failed 100% of the 4 I've done. And some of them had really good chances. But I think of doing Operation Luna just so I can boost some of my things, because if I fail, I would lose one government, but I can fix the government by brinkmanship. So that wouldn't be an issue. Which means I will do Operation Luna here. It's obviously the best to do it in any region which I have 5 control in, because it's a higher chance. So...
We have launched our first object into
perfect.
space.
Congratulations.
I've successfully found the Soviet probe, disassembled it, and put it back together before anybody would know it. But it's important to know that the Soviet Union does get a victory point for it.
You should know about property rights. What is this?
Nah. I mean, you say property rights, and then you just walk into my West Berlin. We agreed that this is split under my line. Remember how I said, East Berlin is yours, West Berlin is mine.
It was in Soviet territory.
No.
Of course. We had tanks right outside the gate. I think we agreed upon this at Yalta, didn't we?
No. I think people consider that stealing?
No, Mr. Churchill gave us this percentage agreement. We got it. Talking about West Berlin, it's now Soviet West Berlin. It's almost like you were reading my mind that I... In terms of the policies, I got a question here. So, what policies are good to pick? It always depends on the context. So, some policies are really good in terms of providing you that little extra you need, but some you might want to hold off on them until you are actually in a position where you can make the most out of that. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm leading by 43 points. So I could, of course, any policy that I make, I could launch, but it would be wise to hold off on them until I know that I'm pretty close enough to just claim victory. And some can be really powerful. It's the same with the intel missions. There is an intel mission, both for the Soviets and the United States, that grants you tremendous amounts of victory points depending on how many missions you have actually done. Oh. Operation detected. Let's make the Americans pay for their hypocrisy. Oh, yes, please.
I don't know what you're talking about. That is communist propaganda.
Well, it got me Addis Ababa and Ethiopian Djiboutian zone in my camp. But of course, Kimati now is gone.
Would you look at that. Eye for an eye.
Hey, thinking waffle.
Yeah. This actually got me closer to what I was attempting to do.
So I get asked a lot about the design element and sort of what's important in a game the most. When designing a game, what element is usually missed in terms of design? And I would say the surprise element is the most missed one. That there isn't enough space where people can surprise themselves and surprise others in the game. And as you see, that is something we've worked on with this game. Of course, here you can surprise yourself with. Surprise your opponent with your strategy, and also sometimes surprise yourself with the choices that you make. Oh, this actually puts me in a pickle. I got the diplomatic headway, which is an international situation, which is where the international situation is improving dramatically. And I think you've been doing some pretty neat stuff. That's very nice. That's very kind. In fact, I will meet you halfway, and I will
Ah, my doomsday clock. Come on, you've been so aggressive and suddenly you're giving in to everything. I'll see.
Well, we don't want war. We just want peace.
No, peace in our time was about 10 years ago. You're a bit late for that. Oh, I see that. You're redeploying into Africa. I'm keeping up. I'm keeping up.
That's not at all what I was doing. Yeah, there's nothing fooling you there. Yeah, that's that. How did you know?
And so, for people to understand, the reason why he wasn't engaging me in France earlier was the fact that I basically baited him in, because I'm able to deploy Magol and Macmillan, as well as in the next timeline I will be possible to deploy leaders in West Berlin, which means he wants to move out of Europe as fast as he can right now. Because as long as I control the regions, or the regions are neutral, I can just put leaders in any of those regions, killing all of his units, just like he did with Tito.
Absolutely. And that's
so
what I
he needs to evacuate. He needs to evacuate.
Precisely. And so for that reason, I'm pulling out. So there was previously mention of that this is a Cold War game, and yes, because you not only need to wage war here, but you need to win the peace, and this is part of that, of course. In particular here, what we're witnessing is that back down. So you want to be aggressive, but you don't always want to be aggressive, because you risk the you risk the imperial overstretch, which means that as soon as you get to a position where you're no longer in strength, well, then your opponent is going to be in strength. So for this reason, even though we've expanded our spheres of influence, I can't go on forever expanding into Western Europe because of the fact that, well, Lem has put up a wall of units protecting it. But what I will do is continue with the great peace project.
Oh. Gallet?
I lost.
You died?
I lost. Yes.
Oh, it didn't even tell me. Oh.
You know what happened?
No, what happened? Tell me. You mismanaged?
You remember how I strained the elements for people?
Yeah, I knew that would come back to bite you.
I forgot about it completely.
So what happened here is this was a minor victory for me. It didn't properly show because the second he lost, I clicked on the screen because I wanted to switch into another feeder, so it skipped the window. What happened was that he mismanaged his interests so that his people dropped to 0. And when it drops to 0, like you saw with my finance earlier, At the beginning, you just get an event. But what can happen is that it just bypasses some of the events and goes further down the line, instantly killing you. This is why you want to prevent actually mismanaging too much, because the first and the second usually run okay, but the third and fourth will throw you overboard, ending your game.
Yeah, apparently people surged forward whilst I was holding a speech, and I got lynched by the crowd.
Yeah, no, like he just said, people didn't burn down his government. Whilst he was giving his speech, an angry mob of peasants basically ran at him and just took him down right there.
It said that the cameras were instructed to film the sky whilst I was lynched, and my bodyguard also died. Terrible, terrible days.
So, for an explanation what my war goal was, you might have not realized, but I've been building up an air command in southern England. And I've been also building up really heavily on the nuclear missiles.
I'm so glad I moved out the army commands from there then.
No, because my goal was, since I was going, so my plan was get Luna, so that I can get gold, so I can see all of units. Then get Luna, so I can then do an espionage, so I can see your exact amount of nukes and your interests. And with my new set command, I will have range to nuke all of the Soviet territories. And since I've been building only nuclear technology, I was already ahead by 4 or 5 nukes, and I had huge amounts of people support. So I would have been able to nuke you.
That's what you've been doing.
Yes.
Well,
and this is why I've also... Because I saw that you were working on Greenland, which is why I stationed a tank on Greenland now. I repositioned tanks there.
You know what I was working on.
Yeah, no, I noticed it later, but I just, for secrecy and for garrisoning, this is why I also fortified Southern Korea and Western France, because if you were decided to attack there, it would have skyrocketed the war tension to 100% immediately, giving me a doomsday and allowing me to nuke you. I would have ended the game right there.
Yeah, you know what I was aiming to do, actually, was something different. I was building up forces to do an invasion from the Aleutian Islands into Alaska. Oh,
I saw that, but yeah, I saw that. Because when I disarmed when I armed in America and you disarmed, you immediately went for Alaska instead for Greenland, and it was a dead giveaway.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was well played, and you see, just because you might be ahead, and I was ahead 43 points here, it doesn't mean that you won. Until you cross the finishing line, you haven't won. And in this case, I ended up losing. It was a tremendously well-played game, and what a fantastic honor to be playing against you, Lem. You're a terrific player, and even when I thought that, I was in a position, especially with the Tito play I did there, you ended up on top. Fantastically played, masterful.
But I'm interested. Were your interests really that bad off for the majority of the game? Because whenever I was looking at your interests, it always showed me like your interests are almost at 0. But since my accuracy was really low, I can't say for sure. Was it really that bad for most of the game?
No. The ones that some I ran really low. In particular, people and finance I had low. And of course, military, because I was trying to do both the space race and the nuclear at the same time. So in the beginning, at every game, the first thing you need to think about is, do you want to play a short game, a long game, or a medium size game? And basically, with the starting focuses that we had up, what made most sense for me with the starting focuses of the Soviet Union was to play a medium-term game. And so I worked towards achieving that goal. And I think you saw that, because I went on the offensive in the beginning. Very early to gather those points. And in particular, also building up some economy, some resource economy, by building up interests that would be rewarded to me as we progressed through the timelines for a mid-game victory. And that was sort of my plan. But of course, that means I can expand a little bit to make that happen, to gain some victory points and to exploit some of the focuses that I had available to me, whilst at the same time, then the second phase of that would have been to pull units back, try to guard what I've gained, and work towards pushing that up to 100 points for a victory. But because I needed to be aggressive in the beginning, I needed to cut corners, and one of the corners I cut ended up in the end biting me in
People.
the behind. The people, the poor Soviet people, they
Yeah,
got themselves a new leadership.
this is the one thing which I instantly noticed, that very early you were fighting a lot in non-focused territories, in which basically I knew that you're going to kill your, at least at that point, you were in zero on the people side at least twice. And what I did over the majority of the game, which people saw, this is the thing I muted myself for, at that point, I saved up 8 on the people. Which means I had a huge amount for when I need to do something in a non-focus feeder. And I also, for the majority of the game, was working a lot on my finances. Because I know this is going to be a long time game, which means I'm going to be redeploying troops a lot. I'm going to be buying a lot of new units. This is why I've been working with the finances. And I also deployed units everywhere in North America, so that when my war goal comes, my game goal comes around, the nuclear win, you won't be able to nuke any of those regions because I'll be having fighter commands up there to block all of it.
Fantastic.
I was having the long game run. I was basically just sitting there now and waiting for the doomsday clock, because I calculated everything in head and I knew that it told me that, you had like 18 nukes, and I knew that that can't be right. If I calculate everything up, you were at 9 or 10, which I'm pretty sure I wasn't correct with that.
I was pretty good with the nukes, but I didn't have 18. I think I had like 14 or something like that.
All right, so I was
wasn't
still
far behind.
I was still
but
pretty
you
head on.
were definitely clearly ahead, and I didn't have any missile attachments, so I didn't have ballistics missiles. I just had simple bombers.
I had the first one on the 50 line and the first one on the 56 line, but I was looking for more military so I can do the second one as well. And maybe even do the third one afterwards. But this is why I was able to get so far ahead. And again, my game plan was simple. Since I knew you have no carriers, you had basically no planes within Western Europe, and you had no control over anything in America.
I had 2 fighters in
yeah, but no bombers.
No, that's true.
You couldn't reach America, but since I had my bomber commands in South England, I could have easily reached you, which means if this was a nuclear war, I would have guaranteed the victory, because I would have blown up so much of your army, which would have lost you so many points.
Absolutely.
And at the very end, I could have forced a draw.
Yeah, absolutely, and that would have meant the worst case scenario. You could have forced a draw, in which case we would have both lost if it came to blows. But there was, I think, a chance that I might have won if you did that, because if you didn't have your people high, there is a people backlash counter.
I know, but I kept my people really high the entirety of the game, and even there, I still had enough people. Yeah, like I said, I had like 8 or 9 people for the majority of the game.
Then we could have definitely could have ended up in the draw. I mean, it was a fantastic game all in all. Do we have any questions from our audience? Are you guys wondering about anything in particular?
I mean, people are definitely wondering what else is there to the DLC, which I have to say I'm slightly sad because we couldn't get that far in. There's so many more really great high risk missions which you can do, and I only was able to show off 2 of them, which, except for Luna, I failed all of them. But I would have been super thrilled to be able, because another thing which I was planning on, because I know that you have been doing a lot of your policies, and you were planning on getting 1 or 2 of your policies which are going to give you that big boost so you can do your invasions or something. And I was preparing that, I forgot which one it was, the high-risk mission, which allows me to block one of yours, as well as block counterintelligence. So my plan was, if Luna was successful, if Gold was successful, I would have blocked your counter, and you would have not been able to find and kill my infiltration, which allowed me 9 turns of complete overview without anybody doing anything about it.
Yes, not to mention, of course, the one of the biggest outcomes where it played a huge role was when we got the the decision chain, the international crisis decision chain, and it allowed me, as the Soviet Union, to cool things down and to really go towards a rapprochement element. Of course, it meant of also reducing the doomsday clock, and that meant cooling things down and reducing the doomsday clock, the likelihood of nuclear war breaking out diminishes. But yeah, of course, that depends on if cooler heads would have continued to prevail.
Would you be surprised if I told you the international crisis actually helped me continue with my nuclear arms race? Because at that point, I had a huge amount of finance, and I had the ability to pay finance to get military and increase the doomsday clock. So I just threw 2 finance out of the window to get military, and then I bought the next nuclear research with that.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed it. What do you say? Everybody's gonna be pretty thrilled because if I'm not wrong, that means that the DLC is gonna be available now, right?
Yes, we'll be rolling out the DLC right after we end the stream here. There will be this evening. It will be rolling out, so it will be made available on the store, and you can get it from there. If there are any other questions, there is one right here. So. Additional languages. So we talked about this yesterday about additional languages, and yes, we are looking at putting in additional languages, and currently we're focusing on English. But going forward, the plan, of course, is that when the rollout of vanilla comes out, that we will be adding more localization.
I mean, it's going to be relatively simple. We have a lot of international people, so it should go relatively well with the localization.
Yes. Mervin. Who is this Mervin? So Mervin is a character. Maybe you want to show off.
Yeah,
Mervin.
sure. Let me just have Mervin greet everybody.
Hello. I'm glad you found me, brave player. It's always nice to see new faces besides my own. I used to be a bit of a lonely chap, you see. It's a long story.
So for people to understand is, we had the discussion on Tuesday that the entire idea behind the game is, if those of you know the movie, War Games. You have that big computer, Joshua, who's sitting there playing, what was it? Global Thermonuclear Warfare. And this is basically the same thing. You have Mervin right here, who's playing the same game with you, except for the whole really blowing up the world. And he's sitting here. He's a really intelligent AI. He's also the AI that you're fighting against if you're playing single player. And there's a lot of things you can talk about with him. Yeah, there we go. Like Waffle says, global thermonuclear war. Because why do you want to play chess? You know, you can blow up the world.
Yes, but, and with that, we also have to say that there are indeed hidden elements in the game, and Mervin is part of solving those. And there is code breaking from the Cold War, which you can find. There's a code breaking code example of that in the puzzle games hidden within the game that might enable you to do certain elements. And there's a verification. Maybe you can show that if you.
Yes. So for all of you guys to understand it, there's the Falcon Punch code, which you have to throw in here if you have your verification password, which you can find with, like he said, with help from the game. If you don't know where to start, you can go ahead and ask Mervin. Just talk with Mervin and go through some of his dialogues. Be sure that you read really, really well what he's talking about, otherwise you can have some problem. But read through what he's saying and just talk with him a little bit. And he's gonna give you some hints to how you can get this verification code, which is gonna open up a lot of new doors for you to play with. It's not required that you get this code, and I also ask everybody, if you know the code, let other people find it out by themselves. It is really a lot of fun. I, myself, as a beta tester, I was given the code, but I still went down and I searched for the code, and I eventually found it, and I managed to decode it myself. And it's a lot of fun. Like, I can only recommend people that if you like code breaking, even like this to the slightest amount, that you go ahead and you do this. It's a lot of fun to do. It's a really well made thing. But like you
Yes.
said, Mervyn is really going to help you with it.
Yeah, so just look out for elements in the game that will give you snippets of code. And to also point out, there's not just one code hidden. There are several codes hidden and several puzzles that you can solve. And all of them have a little bit of an element that they provide to you.
Indeed. But what do you say? Any more questions? Otherwise, I would say we could slowly wrap it up.
And no, I would like to take this this opportunity then to, just as yesterday, thank the Hearts of Iron Road to 56 team, Leif and William, particularly for their wonderful design and the elements that they have created. The time put in by the Q&A team. Logan, you've been fantastic. Lem, thank you for the stream and providing QA. Also, thank you for Donald, who was here yesterday. Fantastic job with moderating, making things happen. And of course, thank you to the hard coding team working to resolve any bugs and any issues. Both Lennart and Davide, you guys have been tremendous during this this endeavor. Not to mention the rest of the QA team, Otto, Alfred, and many others, putting in tremendous amounts of hours, work, and sweat into making making a reality of a game that I imagined, as a child. And so having this be here, I'm tremendously proud of the team and the accomplishments that we have done. And I look forward to talking and getting in contact with you guys in the community. And don't be shy to ask questions or mod the game. We do have a built-in editor. Maybe you can show.
Of course,
where
I can
they
show the
can
editor.
be found.
So for you people that, of course, if you do have the DLC, you will find the DLC down here then. You'll be able to activate it, and if you then go over to your editor, you'll have the wonderful option to use any of the scenarios which already exist, or use your own scenarios, which you or one of your friends have made. And there you can go ahead and just copy one of them, give them a new name, go straight into them, and you can basically modify everything. Decisions, policies, flags, leaders, leader builders, etc, etc. And when you're also done with this, you, like we said with Joshua, why don't we go ahead and we play a little bit of tic-tac-toe with Mervyn, because that is a thing you can do if you're just waiting for this process, which in terms of the code, it just basically cleans up some things, but whilst you're waiting, you can press enter and you can play a little bit of tic-tac-toe with Mervyn. That is always a wonderful thing to do. Anyway, is there anything else you would like to talk about?
No, I think that's a perfect way to end the stream. Many thanks to all of you guys, and keep your questions coming both in the forums. We'll put up a link to that for the community, and of course a link to the Discord channel as well. Thank you all so much for your attention and for your wonderful questions.
Yes, thank you very much. Here again is the link to the Steam forum as well as the link to the Discord. Again, if you have any questions, just come over, we'll be there, and I would probably be pretty thrilled if I can see all of you for next Thursday, for Terminal Thursday again, when we're going to be playing some more.
Yep.
But next time I'm probably not going to be with Gellert. Maybe we're going to have someone else to play with.
Well, then the only thing that remains is for us to set it online on the store, and within the hour it will be available for purchase. And you can find it on Steam. Just search for Terminal Conflict, and you should be able to find the DLC right there. Thank you so much. Take care for now, then, guys.
Thank you very much, Gellert. But with this, if there's no more questions, I appreciate everybody for coming over. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful day. I enjoyed playing with Gallard a lot. Gallard, thank you again.
Oh, you're wonderful.
And with that, I thank everybody. Stay safe, stay solid, and get prepared. In about 1 hour, a little bit less, you'll be able to have access to the Eyes Only DLC. Until next time, I'll see you around.